All right, let's get into this. Joining us now is Damon Hewitt. He's president and executive director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. He's here with me on set, happy to stay. And joining us remotely is Dr. Errol Southers, a former FBI special agent and a professor of the practice in national and homeland security at USC. Very happy to have both you gentlemen with us. Dr. Southers, I do want to start with you. Given what we are seeing and what we know about this person who has attacked Nancy Pelosi's home, how worried should we all be about political violence, especially as we get closer to the midterms? And what do you assess of this person who attacked Pelosi at her home?
Well, thank you, Tiffany. We should be very concerned about this. We've seen this rise in violence or calls for violence since the last election. In June, as you mentioned, DHS issued a warning stating that this would increase. And so while we don't know the exact motive here, and you mentioned that there may be a hybrid, that hybridized motive that we see that's being exhibited by a lot of people who may attack is nothing more than them looking at a menu of a whole collection of extremist ideologies driven by race, religion, or issue orientation, items such as anti-government or anti-Muslim, and they just pick what they want off the menu and act. So we should be concerned about this. We will see heightened security of our electeds going forward and heightened security at our polling places as well.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of violence, Damon, is certainly not new. You know, we were talking a little bit about even the risk of calling it political violence. You know, I mean, it's just violence. And people don't always take it seriously. I want to play a soundbite from the January 6th Commission when we saw the woman, the two black women talking about how their lives were endangered as poll workers. I'm going to play the first soundbite with a poll worker saying she was afraid and finding friends to help her. Take a listen and we'll talk about it on the other side.
A lot of threats, wishing death upon me, telling me that, you know, I'll be in jail with my mother, and saying things like, be glad it's 2020 and not 1920.
That is terrifying from a woman who was standing on the front lines of democracy, trying to do her duty as a citizen. Given things like that and what we know about this person who attacked Nancy Pelosi's husband, I'm curious to hear your thoughts and your assessment of this kind of violence.
Thanks, Tiffany. I agree with your other guests. You know, what we're seeing here, they're calling it political violence as if it's somehow partisan. Democrats are doing it, Republicans are doing it. That's not really what's happening. What's happening is that there's a through line to apparently what's happened here to Nancy Pelosi's husband, to what happened during the January 6th insurrection, what happened to Shay Freeman, and also what happened during the Buffalo massacre, when black people were murdered just for going to shop to get groceries. This is driven by white supremacist ideology. That's why you see these online posts talking about anti-Semitism, but also this obsession with thinking that America is somehow anti-white. But what we see is that this anti-black theory, this white supremacist ideology, is actually driving people to violence. It's stirring people up and really allowing these private biases to come out, and they're being weaponized. And we're seeing that law enforcement hasn't been fully successful in stopping it, and the courts aren't stopping it either.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, you know, it seems like there's this effort to normalize this kind of behavior and to make Trumpers feel, you know, at home and prioritize their feelings. But when it results in violence, I don't know that there's space for that. And you know, separating the GOP from the extremists, it seems these two have converged, Dr. Southers. I want you to take a listen to Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin of Virginia and what he had to say not long after, just hours after Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked and hit in the head by a hammer. This was his remarks. Take a listen.
Speaker Pelosi's husband, they had a break-in last night in their house, and he was assaulted. There's no room for violence anywhere, but we're going to send her back to be with him in California.
It's just not an appropriate remark to make, and it's almost, you know, comes really close, you know, to there's good people on both sides. When you have elected officials who are not as appalled as the rest of us who express some sort of humanity to the House Speaker, what does that say about where we are in our politics when someone like that, a governor of a state, is, you know, being tongue-in-cheek about this kind of vicious attack?
Well, Mr. Hewitt's absolutely correct. We have normalized the violence. We have normalized the anti-blackness, anti-Semitism, and all of the other extremist hate that's going on in America. When an elected official says something like this, and then I understand his office came out later on to state that he was not making fun of it, but dangerously close to at least joking about it, and certainly inappropriate. So now we see electeds across the country that embrace this kind of rhetoric because they understand it moves the base, it moves the needle on their voters. And they're going to continue to do it because it's a strategy that's working for them, unfortunately, and they're being somewhat successful with it.